sitting here in Colorado on Baseline Road, heading west. Well, I was looking at a freight train. Based on the sound the cars made going over something, I don't know what it was that would make that sound. They sound empty. They look empty. This train has a total of 6, if I remember correctly, 6 engines. There might be 7. There's 2 or 3 on the front, 2 in the middle, and there's 2 on the back. For those who don't know, the purpose of having trains like that, or having engines on the back, they don't use cabooses anymore, or what was known as a brake car. When you have a line of cars, basically a chain, in order to stop that chain, you want to pull from the back. You want to apply pressure to the chain, or tension to the chain from the rear. If you were to try to stop that train just with engines on the front, the train would try to collapse on itself, and it would try to fold up like an accordion, and it would be very, very bad, right? So ideally, you want to balance the load on the chain of cars by creating tension from the rear, but not so much tension that it overwhelms the braking ability of the caboose or the engines in the back, because obviously they don't weigh as much as the line of the rest of the train, or to create a situation where you could have the cars start to separate because you have so much tension on the back of the train, and the front of the train is trying to get away or accelerate away from the rear part of the train. So it starts to stress the couplings and could stretch or separate the cars. In theory, there's lots of safety mechanisms to prevent all this from happening. But the fact of the matter is, the computer controls also apply some brake pressure in the middle of the train if necessary, when it's a very long train like that one, and at the front of the train to balance out the forces in the chain of cars, the train of cars, train and chain, right? It's no wonder those 2 words sound so much alike. So that you're neither trying to collapse the train or trying to create enough stress or tension for the train to try to pull apart. These variables continue to vary, like how much tension is needed and applied to the front, rear, and or middle engines with regards to braking changes constantly with regards to terrain, meaning whether or not there's any slope to the tracks, the angle, if there is any, that the tracks are going up or down, will change the load forces within that chain of cars. So that has to be accounted for. It will also vary depending on how much weight the cars are carrying and how much weight each car is carrying. So with regards to dynamic load in motion and the forces thereby needed to balance and keep safe the load and the train and the cargo, in addition to surrounding properties, or if the cargo is hazardous, for instance, which a lot of them are. Trains are amazing to watch simply for their mass, how fast they go, and what you can visually understand with regards to seeing that amount of mass moving at all, really, like a massive sort of a caterpillar or snake of some sort, and the dynamics in that, let alone the internal stresses that are under control or attempting to be controlled, that change with load, grade, and speed. And yeah, people wonder why there are train derailments or computer failures, or why some conductor thinks maybe maybe just changing up a little, overriding something here or there so that they can get where they got to be faster, or so on and so forth, without a thorough understanding of the nature of the machine. You are in severe violation of this rule of called common sense, and people should appreciate, at the very least, what goes into the world around us, because there's a lot more going on usually than what you see or what you think you see structurally or engineering wise, and why certain things are a certain way, probably proven or disproven over time, or with regards to many accidents or failures. And if you see a device, or especially an older one, and it looks skookum, meaning that it looks like it's quality built, it probably is. And it's only been within the last 20 years or so, where with regards to technology base, where we've really gotten, and it is a thing, I mean, it happens a lot, but the materials have changed, and people have decided to sort of start over, sort of engineering wise, with regards to digital technology versus analog. And I think more than once we've all sort of discovered that there are definitely advantages to new technology, and there's reasons that old technology it falls behind and is needing to be replaced, or needing upgrades, or there's something better. But I think the argument also stands very clearly that I'd say in general, maybe leaving old technology to some extent intact, as a reserve, as a fallback, as sort of a fail-safe, a system that works, is going to be better in the long run to a system that is not working, or ineffective, or failing, past or prematurely. I mean, until the technology's proven, you have sort of an argument, a fool's argument, where you're bringing on Detroit, Michigan, $12 million or so in LED lamp lighting, and now the lamps are failing. Neither the city, the taxpayer, or the company itself could ever possibly afford to absorb the cost affiliated with that loss. And that's and although Detroit didn't have light in the first place in that particular instance, and there's really no way to know whether or not a particular set of LED lighting is going to be work in the long run, or what it is that is failing with LED lighting, and why in those particular instances. You can't leave dark streets dark, but it's an example. Maybe find a way to have the LED system with the ability to retrofit a lamp in there, a regular screw-in type lamp, even if it is an LED lamp, so that if there is a failure, there's a backup. There's a slightly more proven, maybe more durable technology as a backup while we have these growing pains. I believe that the R&D factor alone is where the cost is. Companies aren't investing in the R&D. They're allowing the computers to call the shots. They make the product, and then if it fails, the marketplace does the voting. People vote with their dollar. The consumer votes with regards to their purchase, and if there's a failure point, the company goes out of business, and everybody cuts their losses, so on and so forth. But it wasn't it wasn't the R&D, it wasn't the front loading of the cost that guaranteed success. It was the oops along the way, and the margin of error is allowable, because for the most part that doesn't happen. That is a difficult thing to argue. I mean, it's not cost effective to add pricing to your new business on startup, especially if you've got a product that for the most part works, or has not been shown to not work. For example, LED, some kind of LED lighting, and all the design specs that are called for are met. It'd be hard pressed to say, oh yeah, well let's make sure that we throw a bunch of extra R&D costs in that when there's zero that shows that it's necessary, and probably to the contrary. And so you have failures and no one sees them coming, or there was maybe genuinely no intentional error, a simple issue, but the scope. One thing if some consumers buy it, but it's nothing when it's a bulk purchase on a new technology, and it's either the government, which would be our troops, our men in uniform in harm's way, or God forbid, something like lighting, sewer, well, something that is an infrastructure issue. This is not, just for tonight. Lights need to be on for our kids, the same neighborhoods. And if we're going to bring them back in whatever city, decides to, suffer. You tell me Detroit's the only one? You're just lying to yourself. If you think Detroit's the only place there's problems, you're wrong. And obviously nobody thinks that. But here's the problem. Detroit isn't the example of what not to do. Detroit is, if people don't pay attention, the result, the ultimate outcome of every city in America. And people should pay attention to Detroit and Flint and cities like that, because they didn't start like that. These were some of the most affluent, rich places in America where we made cars. Anybody remember what cars are? Thank you for watching.